But we begin tonight with small but important signs of hope for our 248-year-old democracy. Yes, it remains under severe threat from Donald Trump and his Christian Nationalist Party. Just not for the reasons that he's telling you. What is set to begin in a Manhattan courtroom Monday morning is not an attack on democracy, as Trump is leading his cult members to believe. It's actually a sign of its health and evidence that it can still function the way it was intended to. To help explain, I want to take a brief trip to Italy and introduce you to Silvio Berlusconi, the country's longest-serving prime minister and a former media baron. He was caught in an endless string of investigations during his time in politics and was ultimately indicted for embezzlement, tax fraud, bribery, abuse of office, and underage prostitution. While Berlusconi was able to get out of just about all of the charges against him, he did ultimately face accountability and was convicted. 81 years ago, Italy was run by fascists. Today, it is a functioning democracy, and Berlusconi's conviction is evidence of that. In fact, we've seen plenty of democracies prosecute former heads of state, including France's Nicolas Sarkozy for charges including corruption and illegal campaign financing, South Korea's Park Geun-hye for bribery and coercion, and South Africa's Jacob Zuma for contempt of court tied to a corruption inquiry. Just last month, Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro was indicted for allegedly falsifying data related to COVID vaccinations while he was president. And of course, when it comes to current indictments, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu remains under a criminal indictment for corruption, even as he currently leads the country and Israel's harrowing war in Gaza. Some might say he's keeping that disastrous war going to push back the start of his trial even. But this is a thing that happens in democracies. If a head of state is found to have committed a crime, they're prosecuted, just like any other citizen. Because in a democracy, there are no kings, no dictators, no one is above the law. The principle of equal justice under the law, which is engraved on the front of the United States Supreme Court, is no less true here in this democracy. And on Monday, Donald Trump will see it function firsthand as his hush money election interference trial gets underway. Now, ironically, it's in the same courtroom where the Central Park Five were prosecuted as teenagers for a sexual crime they actually didn't commit. A group who were exonerated after Trump, who was recently found civilly liable for sexual abuse, called for their executions. Irony has a strong sense of humor. And in the last few hours, Judge Juan Merchan shot down one of Trump's last remaining motions to try to delay this trial. Trump's claim of pretrial publicity in which Trump was seeking an indefinite adjournment. In his order, Merchan points to Trump's own public statements for much of the publicity that is out there, writing, the situation defendant finds himself in now is not new to him, and at least in part of his own doing. The judge also agreed that the solution would come next week by conducting a thorough, thoughtful, and effective voir dire during jury selection. And yes, that case that starts on Monday is historic, the first criminal trial of a former president. But what Trump wants you to believe is that somehow that threatens democracy. It doesn't. What does threaten it is his effort to stoke the flames of chaos. One of his campaign fundraising emails this morning refers to the start of the trial on Monday and declares 72 hours until all hell breaks loose. Now, you'll recall that the last time someone in Trump's inner circle said all hell would break loose, it was Steve Bannon on his podcast the day before the January 6th insurrection. Still, in the courtroom, unlike on Capitol Hill back in 2021, all hell will not break loose. In fact, it will run just like any other criminal trial. Trump will be required to sit in the courtroom every single day while his lawyers conduct the trial. He'll be expected to behave himself, and he will be presented with a presumption of innocence before the jury. A jury, by the way, that will likely hear directly from Trump.
Testify in your trial in New York.
Yeah, I would testify, absolutely. It's a scam. It's a scam. That's not a trial. That's not a trial. That's a scam.
And look, if the prosecutors can't prove that you did it, Donald, you'll get off. You'll walk scot-free. See? Democracy. Now, outside the courtroom, all bets are off. The Secret Service and the New York Police Department are already making special security arrangements in preparation for whatever happens and whoever decides to show up. The wild card, of course, is the defendant. Trump will surely not shy away from cameras outside the courtroom, where he can continue his attacks on the judge, the prosecutors, the witnesses, maybe even the jury. But inside that courtroom, democracy will prevail. Joining me now is Katie Phang, MSNBC legal contributor and host of the Katie Phang Show on MSNBC. Glenn Kirshner, former federal prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst. And Bobby Ghosh, senior editor at Bloomberg. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to just go right down the line and start with you, Katie. Because the thing is that Monday, as madcap as I'm expecting it to be, and I'm assuming you will, and Glenn will be hostages inside of one NBC News bureau or another, you're not going to be able to leave all day because you're going to be covering it all day. But that might actually be the most normal thing that we've seen relating to Trump, really since 2016. Him going into a courtroom and being not arraigned, but him facing jury selection like any other citizen. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think that's important, Joy, to point out, because if you look at the style of the case, and the style is the name, it's the people of New York, right, versus Donald J. Trump, he doesn't get the benefit of President Trump. As we know, annoyingly, his lawyers consistently refer to him as President Trump in legal filings and when they speak about him in court. But it is the humbling moments when he has to sit at counsel's table, not by choice, but by law and required procedure, when he is referred to as criminal defendant Donald Trump, that the playing field is truly leveled. And that is when accountability comes a knockin' and hard. Because the voir dire process, the jury selection process, all the way to the verdict being rendered against him is something that affects thousands of Americans on a daily basis. And so regardless of how much he wants to have all hell break loose outside, there will be a silence that will be happening in that courtroom, because Donald Trump will not be in the driver's seat. Judge Juan Merchan will be controlling his courtroom as he does, and Donald Trump will not have any free rein to act out when he's in court, and he will have to, again, sit humbly and quietly while the judicial system does its work.
Yeah, something he's not used to doing. And Glenn, I mean, we've just been covering, obviously, the death of O.J. Simpson. You know, that was sort of a monumental trial of the century in the 21st century. What do you think that we in the media should have learned from that spectacle that I remember? I was telling Chris Hayes the other day, I was 25 years old on maternity leave. So I watched the trial like I felt like I was the 13th member of the jury. But what do you think that we in the media should learn from that coverage of spectacle? Because the way in which Trump is not like every other American is the same way OJ was not like every other American. He's a celebrity. And on top of that, he's a former president. What should we learn what should we think about as we're watching that spectacle?
You know, I think we should focus on the fact that the rule of law matters. The rule of law is one of the things that makes this country great, that makes us a civilized people. And I firmly believe we're in a really important moment, because our nation will be stronger for a former president of the United States who committed all kinds of crimes. He's indicted 88 times over. The evidence, in my assessment, even that's just been publicly reported, is overwhelming. And our nation will be stronger once our lived experience is that even a former president of the United States can be put through a fair judicial process, and a jury of his peers, a jury of ordinary citizens, will be in a position to decide whether the admissible evidence proves his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. I believe he'll be held accountable. I believe he'll be convicted. But one way or another, our nation will come out the other side of this so much stronger for just having gone through the exercise of putting a criminal former president on trial.
Yeah. And, you know, Bobby, I wanted to bring you in. I know you've written a lot about this because I think it is a normalizing thing. I think Americans sometimes want exceptionalism so badly that they forget we're part of the world, you know, and I thought of Berlusconi because, you know, Rula Gibril, who you and I both know very well, who's a great journalist and who's done a lot of, a lot of her journalism in Italy. You know, she's the one who first told me, you know, Trump is America's Berlusconi, very similar sort of larger than life media kind of character. And his that was a humbling moment for one of the most powerful men ever in Italy's history. What does it say to you, just as someone who's covered the international sort of media world and international politics, that Donald Trump is going to meet the same kind of system of justice that he had to?
Well, it would be a terrific advertisement for American democracy if when you put the former president on trial. We're talking about how it will be perceived in this country, how New Yorkers will see it, how his supporters will see it. But I'm thinking of how the world will see it. And the world will see American democracy, which we like to preach to the rest of the world. The world will see American democracy, the American justice system in action. And I think the world will welcome that. You talk of Berlusconi, Jacques Chirac of France was convicted. 3 presidents in a row in Brazil, 3 presidents in South Korea. These are not sort of, to use a slightly unpopular phrase, these are not banana republics. These are thriving democracies. And it's a good thing for a democracy to show everybody within the country, and because we are United States, to show the wider world that in a democracy, the systems of justice work independently from the political process. That it does not matter how popular, never mind that he was a former president, it does not matter how popular a person is, how famous he is, that he has to go through the same system of accountability and justice as you or me. That's very, very important. That's a fantastic, as I said at the top, fantastic advertisement for American democracy to the world.
Yeah, and we need it because January 6th was like the opposite.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.